It's okay, I've done it.
We both got it.
All right, brilliant. Okay, great. Thanks, Babs. Welcome, folks. Good to see you all again. Good to be back after last week's break. If this is the first time you're joining us, very warm welcome to you. If you've been with us before, welcome back. Just the usual formalities. We do have a code of conduct, as most of you know. In short, we just ask that you be respectful to one another. Want everybody to have a great time. Harassment-free experience. We will do the usual community bits and pieces at the end. And this evening, we're also got a little bit of excitement because our wonderful guest speaker is also giving away 2 copies of his book on audio. So we'll have a little raffle of sorts at the end of the session. And with that, I'm delighted to welcome Erich. Join us this evening. He's joining us all the way from Thailand. So I think it's at 1 a.m. in the morning there. So absolutely for doing that. As most of you all know, I'm sure it's why you're here. Erich is the author of Leading Exponential Change. And he's here this evening just to talk to us about some of the themes in that book, and looking forward to hearing his insights on change, what it feels like to experience change, and what change looks like in organizations, and why sometimes certain practices don't work. And I'm particularly interested in hearing more about his thoughts on sort of neuroscience of change. So yeah, over to Erich. Delighted to have him here. Welcome, sir. The floor is yours.
Okay, good. Thank you very much. Let's just make sure everyone is ready. I'm gonna give you a few seconds just to warm up. You know, my accent, sometimes it takes a little bit of time, my South American accent. Well, I'm gonna be talking about different things today. I wanted to show you how to accelerate change in the company. For years, I was reading books about Agile, about Scrum, about leadership. And what I found is that many books are either based on experience, they tell you stories, which is good to learn. Otherwise, they tell you about frameworks. So you do this, and then you're gonna get this. And other books are about specific things, right? Like certain theories. What I didn't find, and I was looking everywhere, you know, a few years ago, was how or what happens during change, and try to understand when a person in the company is exposed to change, how we can accelerate and how that person can embrace change, right? Imagine that you come back home every day, you have a different wife, different dog, if you had a dog, right? Could be a cat also. You had different house and everything looks different. So this experience, which looks a little bit crazy, can happen. It's the same thing that people feel sometimes with change in companies, which is that they don't really know what's happening. They don't really know where the company is going. And so many things happen in the brain. So my book is in the 2nd edition now, which is available in English, Spanish, and Portuguese. And audiobook, unfortunately, guys, is American accent. I had to make a decision there. Even I learned English in the UK some years ago. The idea here is that you start understanding what happened in your brain. And I'm gonna talk about some theories and some frameworks I developed that you can use in the company. Hopefully you're gonna enjoy it, right? So the first thing is that some companies do not know why things are wrong, right? And then with COVID, I realized that people need some support, and started 3 days ago, I started with this crazy idea of what I call the organizational pills, that are 5-minute videos where I explain something about change. For example, this one was the first one. I explained about accelerated change and the basic of enterprise agility. And next week, I'm gonna be talking about something, I'm gonna talk about this today also, which is a pyramid of change, to understand which mindset is each person in the company and which techniques you need, right? And I'm going to try to be very clear with everything. If you don't understand what I'm saying or the concept or the ideas, just ask, right? And I invite you to subscribe to the organizational pill if you are interested to know more about change management. Are all free, right? But companies, sometimes they do not understand what's happening and why things are not working as expected. And I took this picture today, right? Some companies, for them, everything is fine. But then from outside, you can see that something is happening there, but they cannot see. And why they cannot see? Well, today we're gonna see, try to understand why some people can see things and how to make sure that those people see the things in a way that allows them to change or embrace change. When you try to help a company, many people believe that we are just helping the company to change. But the reality is that we are helping people to evolve, to think in a different way. I always tell the story that when I had a problem with my ex-girlfriend, I used to put some post-its and then write the different problems we had and say, okay, which one is more important for you? Which one we should solve first? Obviously, it didn't take too much time until the relationship didn't work, right? but in fact, when you are influencing someone in the company, generally it's influencing also the way they think, and we have to be very responsible with that. We are not just educating people inside the company, but we are educating different ways of thinking, right? So let me go briefly about, try to describe what happened during COVID. And this is very important for you to understand, because when you understand what happened during COVID, you will see that many of the practices you use or you used in the past before COVID, they do not work anymore, or we need to make some changes, right? And this is something very important for you to understand. During COVID, people were doing, or they are still doing in some countries, quarantine. What happened when you do quarantine after a few weeks of being at home is that something called ataraxia. So your brain starts getting used to being at home, getting used to not being exposed to interacting with other people, commuting, going to work, and start getting relaxed in a certain way and stressed in another. But the reality is that the brain works in a different way, and start getting stressed by things that are different. It's not that I get stressed because I couldn't take my train because I'm working from home, but you get stressed with other things. So this state of ataraxia is a kind of mental state of certain tranquility, right? And also, when we work from home, we discovered recently that when we do video calls with other people, especially colleagues, our brain is trying to constantly reconstruct or rebuild the environment, the social environment. So 1 hour of a call with someone, video call, is like if you had 5 or 6 or 7 hours in an office, because your brain is trying to deduct just by seeing the other person on the face so many things that before we had in this social environment. We could see, we could smell, we could touch it, and we don't have it anymore, right? So also there are also probably possible changes in the workplace. People maybe do not know if they are going to be next month. They can feel sad or anxious. They have also fear of the unknown. And that kind of brings some conscious and unconscious mental thoughts. In fact, one of the things we saw is that people are not able to sleep in the same way, and there's nothing wrong. It's something that is happening. People are stressed. And we have also a roller coaster of emotions Today we are happy because they say that maybe COVID is going down, and tomorrow they say that's going up, and that creates a lot of distress. Now, said that, we're gonna see that the person that left the office probably 6 months ago, the brain of that person is not the same brain of the person today. And this is very important. As a change consultant or someone who wants to influence change, I imagine that you are here because you want to make a positive impact in the company. You need to understand that certain things are not going to work in the same way. And I'm saying about techniques or practice you used in the past. So we are also exposed to something we call exponential pace of change. And this is a circle I created, and I talk about that also in my book, which is that in the last probably 15 years, we have first a Moore's law, that is technology is exponentially growing. So we have a product today, and next month this product is advancing at a very fast speed or pace. We also have short work cycles. Companies are releasing product once and again. Before, you remember, we release a product, or companies release a product every 2 or 3 months, and now it's every week, every few days, every day. So that's creating a lot of disruptions in the market. Maybe you're going to release a product next week, and this week someone releases a better product. So this is constantly creating what we call market disruptions. We also have people are interconnected. We have the internet, so people can talk to other people in other places, and that accelerate the creation of knowledge. So knowledge now flows faster. Then we have artificial intelligence that is obviously impacting, and then we have big data. What happened with all these things is that, well, we have COVID also now. What happened with these things is that market disruptions are accelerating even faster. And the issue is that people are not prepared for exponential change, which means, yes, we are okay with linear things, which means, okay, I create something, then you take a look at that, then you improve it, you pass it back to me, very slow change. But people are not prepared for this. The brains are not prepared for this. In fact, we're going to see that when the brain is exposed to exponential pace of change, the brain gets very stressed. And when the brain gets very stressed, it works in a different way. But I don't want to talk about that, as I'm going to be talking about this in a few seconds. So a few years ago, I started working with companies all around the world. And I wanted to see, one of the questions from other people was, how do I know which techniques I have to use with people in one company? How can I make them embrace change? And then I started working in this pyramid or triangle that basically gives you some ideas of where to work, and try to understand when someone is in certain mindset, which techniques and which practices you have to use to help that person embrace change. And it has basically 5 mindsets. I always say everyone wants to change, but there are 5 mindsets you need to consider. The first mindset, the higher you go, the closer you are closer to change, right? Or you are closer to embrace that change. The further away, the lower you go, it means that obviously you are not going to embrace change and you don't care. So the bottom here is, I want things to be as I say, and I don't care about you. When we hear this, it basically says that that person is not prepared for the change. And what it means that this person is not prepared for change? It means that consciously or subconsciously, this person has fear. In general, the fear is related to losing prestige in the company, or losing the position, or getting fired. And many times the person does not know that this is happening. So when the person says, I want things to be as I say, it means I want to protect the way I'm doing things, and I don't care about you. It means the person sees the change, and the person proposing the change as the same thing. So it's not that they don't like the person, they don't like the person and the change, right? Mostly here, when we are at this level, we try to understand how fear works during change, and I'm going to talk about that in a few minutes. I'm going to talk about the amygdala and what happens in the brain, and this fight or flight response. But this level is all about fear, right? Even if you teach this person new techniques, even if you teach a new framework, it's not going to work first. You need to have an honest conversation, or try to read between lines to try to understand why this person, what this person is afraid of. And sometimes this person is not gonna say that, or is not aware of, because it's subconscious. The second level is I don't like the proposed change. And here you can see there is a change in the perspective. When you say I do not like the proposed change, it means I don't find in this change something that is going to benefit me, right? So if you don't like, it's generally because whatever someone proposes is not having into account this person, or this person is feeling that there is nothing they're going to get. And this is what probably you know, what is called, what is in it for me? So you need to start working with this person in finding, listening to that person. Why this person considers that does not like it is because this change is going to impact them. It's because this change or whatever you want to do is not going to give any benefit. And in here we start trying to see maybe the person does not have the skill for the, you have a change and you have a new situation after the change. You can visualize that. And maybe for that future time, the person does not have the skill. So you try to work, for example, making sure that this person has the skills, this person gets benefits, and at all time we need, reinforce the vision. The person has to see that vision, right? And we can talk about hours for this, but I try to make it simple. When we go back to the next level, the next mindset is I do not understand why they change. And this is very interesting because the person starts focusing from I don't like anything to I start liking you. And here the person likes you, but does not understand the change. And in here the focus is about teaching new frameworks, teaching new things, explaining the person the benefit. But in here, we are just one step from moving this person to the change, or two steps really, right? The difference with the previous one here is I don't understand why they change. Is the person is open. The person is open to debate, is open to embrace it, but is not still prepared for that. In here, we have many techniques we can use. I talk about in the book about many techniques, but then if you have questions, ask me and I will be happy to answer. Next level is I don't understand why we must change. And this is an interesting shift because the person moved from me to we. So now I'm almost convinced, but you know what? I want to protect my team. I want to make sure we feel together. So in here, we need to demonstrate in certain way that we move together in certain direction, that my team and me are protected. In here, you need a very strong vision to guide those people. We need to make sure that the team feels okay. We need to make sure that there are no many, in the team is working fine, it's not many dysfunctionalities. as in some way, in here, the team has to work well, and conflict at this level has to be solved in a nice way, in a positive way, right? If you have a team that do not understand why they move in that direction and they don't talk to each other, then that's not gonna work. And then after you solve that, people are gonna start embracing change, right? And this is what healthy people, or this is my theory about how healthy people move. And this is one of the things I talk in the book. And in here, it's very important to understand that there is another type of people that do not follow this path, which is what we call narcissists, psychopath, or disconnected people. If you want to know more about this, I also wrote an article of what to do when you are running a change or a transformation and then you come across narcissists or psychopaths. They do not follow this path, right? And this is very important to understand. I want to check briefly how we are doing, if we are doing fine. So just want to give me a thumb if we are okay with this, with the explanation, with the triangle. Just extend your arm and show me a thumb. Yeah, are we okay with this? Are we okay with the explanation? Yes? Okay, so I'll go ahead, make some note if you had any questions here. Let me check the, sorry. Are we still okay with the presentation? Yes. Okay, so let me try to explain to you what happens during change and try to, and for you, like, I'm gonna do it very easy. I'm gonna explain it in an easy way. I don't want to go too deep. I just want to make sure that everyone understands what happens in the brain. And I'm very happy that, or at least I'm gonna be happy after this presentation to tell me, Eric, I learned something new. So, imagine that you are trying to drive your car. Then when you try to drive your car, the first time, go back in time, probably, I don't know, many years ago. In my case, I had to pass the exam 3 times. The first one, I almost killed someone who was crossing the street. Well, not kill someone, but almost. The second one, I almost crashed the car. And this third one, finally, I passed the exam. So now that's the reason why I cycle most of my time. I think it's safer. So when you try to learn something, whatever it is, there is at the front of your brain, you have what you call the prefrontal cortex, which is the thinking brain. It's very intelligent. If your thinking brain is basically, it controls almost everything that is analytical, reasoning, perspectives, everything very advanced. When you learn something, the prefrontal cortex is the part that's trying to learn the activity. The problem is that it consumes a lot of oxygen. That's why when you get a new job in a new company, the first day you are very tired. It's because your prefrontal cortex is trying to learn all these new activities. Then, when the prefrontal cortex learns, it moves it to what I call the hard drive, which is at the back, which is the basal ganglia. Right? Once it's automated, it moves to the basal ganglia. The good news is the basal ganglia does not consume much oxygen. So everything which is repetitive, it moves there. So for example, now I'm able to drive my car. I can be on the phone with someone. I can be looking around, listening to the music. I can be so many things, and then I don't feel tired. And this is why in a company, after a few weeks, you feel better. So everything is moved from the prefrontal cortex when it's not new anymore, and it's automated and it's the hard drive at the back. But what I wanted to show you guys is the amygdala. The amygdala in the middle there are 2 amygdala, are very tiny, and what we call the smoke detector of the body, or the alarm bell. And the amygdala stores emotional memories and also ignites what we call the fight or flight. Imagine you open the door in your place and you find a lion. If the prefrontal cortex had to react, it would take a long time. So what the amygdala does is basically hijacks the higher brain centers, the front. It releases a lot of oxytocin in the brain, and it prepares you for a fight. In this case, the idea is that you can respond to something that is very dangerous. It produces a stress response. It produces fear and anxiety, and also increases the levels of cortisol. Why I'm telling you this? Because the amygdala also activates in certain very specific cases in companies. So for example, there is a very huge activation, very aggressive activation of the amygdala when there is a change in status or prestige. Imagine you were the boss and now you're not the boss anymore. Now someone came with the idea of calling you servant leader. I don't want to be a servant. It sounds very bad word for me. So my brain is gonna activate the amygdala. When I activate the amygdala, it's gonna disable partially the prefrontal cortex, and I convert it into a monkey. So when things are also changing quickly or get very stressed, also the amygdala they are releasing oxytocin. Or if you have to face a challenge or a difficult situation, but also happen when you have excessive change, for example, a huge workload, you are working very long hours. And if there is high uncertainty. What happening here is when the brain has oxytocin or the amygdala is activated, people are less flexible to change. Now with COVID, people at home, some of these things happened. So all of us had a higher activation of the amygdala at the moment. And probably we have a little bit more oxytocin than before. So we are not as flexible as we used to be. And we have to be very careful, because whatever you say, it can be understood in a different way. So the amygdala shut down the perspective and the analytical and reasoning area and disable it, so you don't think really in the same way. And let me give you an example. This is some research I personally did, and also I will give you the source in case you are interested to know more. And that happened in all continents. I've been working in the 5 continents, and happen everywhere. It doesn't matter about, not important, the culture. So imagine that we have this guy, let's say a developer called Fivo. It has a 5 in the t-shirt. And Anna is on the right-hand side, is the boss. They have a very good relationship. And then Fivo comes and says, Anna, I have an idea that I want to share with you. And Anna said, well, Fivo always had very good ideas. For sure, I will say yes. And then Fivo read in some magazine, Agility magazine or conference, and came up with this great idea. What if we flatten out the hierarchies to be more agile? What do you think that this lady is gonna say? Let me show you what happened in their brain. Flattening hierarchies means that you lose prestige in some way, because you're not going to be the boss anymore. The amygdala activates very aggressively and create a high response, and something happened in the brain, and that was finally proved by Antonio Gil in 2016 in Madrid, that 110 milliseconds, the amygdala kidnapped the thinking brain, and this change or whatever this person is proposing does not support the status or security. And it completely disabled the front of the brain. And then the no thinking brain influence Anna thought, start adding some new thoughts. I was gonna say, for example, Anna, maybe you're gonna lose your job. Hey, if you lose your job, then you're not going to be able to pay the bill. And then it adds all this new story in the brain without Anna knowing. And 220 milliseconds, the thinking brain get the new scenery, the new ideas, without Anna being that she had been strong influenced. So, said that, we can see here why people sometimes in company behave in non-rational ways, and we can start understanding it. So how we can solve this? Well, first understanding a little bit how the brain works, understanding that Anna in this previous scenario needs to make sure, and we need to reinforce that she's gonna be okay. And we need to make sure that many of these techniques are gonna support the person to feel safe, because at this stage, fear activates the amygdala. I wanted to show you a framework I developed in companies to make sure that companies are able to develop in certain way their own ways of working, but having in mind in some way this neuroscience of change concepts. So every time I go to a company, I cannot explain the guys all the science behind, but I can teach them a very important framework that they can use, very simple framework they can use, and they're gonna support all this idea of psychologically safety and organizational health, right? Let me go to the next slide. I hope we are fine. Yeah, let me check with you guys. Is everyone okay? Just give me a thumb if we are fine. Yes. Otherwise, just, yeah, good. Hope you didn't fall asleep. So let me show you this framework I created based on other frameworks, and I came up with some ideas here. And this is also based on cost of delay. So every company is based on, or product in a company is based on 4 things. The first thing is that any product want to increase revenue. So in here, we try to increase sales to new customer, for example, to delight or, create some disruption with the existing customers. Just try to increase revenue. This is very simple. The second idea is that this product just try to protect the revenue. So we try the current revenue, we try to protect it. If we have a base of clients, we try to keep them. You can try to keep the current market share and the revenue figures. And we do whatever we can to protect those people. We can treat them well, we can make sure that they feel good with us, we can propose something else, right? But we protect that revenue. The third quadrant is what we call avoid cost, which is the cost you are not incurring, but you might do in the future. And in here, you make some improvement to avoid this cost, and you need to know which costs there are, right? And finally, reduce cost. This is something that companies generally do. They just take a team and they say, okay, you're very expensive, I fire you. The problem here is that in standard ways of working, you fire a team, but in Agile, we do it in a different way. Before firing a team, we make sure that we have that knowledge somewhere else. The problem with the standard methodologies, they do not consider what we call shared knowledge. Every team creates some knowledge. And when you reduce cost, in Agile, you need to make sure that you reduce cost, but you do not destroy knowledge. If that team was working with a product and created a lot of knowledge, if you just fire this, you also have to compensate in some way, and you need to know that you're going to destroy that knowledge. What are you going to do if you destroy the knowledge? Then who's going to be in charge of that product? Maybe developing or maintaining this product is going to take so much longer, it's going to be more expensive. So here we just cut the costs, and in Agile we do in a different way. We always consider also the knowledge that those employees or those people that we're going to fire created and how to keep them. The key here is, first of all, this is my definition of business or enterprise agility. And my definition is that it's the capacity for the company to constantly adapt to the new market conditions to create a competitive advantage. But the key in my definition is what is in green, without negatively impacting on its organizational health. So what we're gonna do is, we're gonna take any product owner in the company, and this is an exercise that I recommend you to do mentally first. And we are gonna ask them, okay, guys, you have features. So these features you have for the product, in which part of this quadrant they go? Many times, they do not know if this feature is gonna increase, it's gonna protect, it's gonna reduce or avoid cost. This is the first thing we need to know, in which quadrant these features are. Because this is part of our definition of business value. Some companies have no idea where is the feature. And then after we organize and we create a backlog, but we clearly understand where it is in this, we ask the second question: how this feature is going to increase the organizational health? For example, imagine a feature or this developing something. Imagine we're gonna make people work extra hours. If we make people work extra hours, it means that organizational health is going to deteriorate. People are going to start feeling tired. They're going to come to work with nice mood. They're going to increase probably tension. They're going to be more conflict. So then what about finding another alternative? Maybe doing this feature in a different way, in a way that is simple, that is not that ambitious, or see. Because what we want here, guys, is that the company is sustainable in the long term. And I want to be clear about a second definition, that is what is organizational health. For me, it's psychological safety plus creation of sustainable business value in perpetuity. So whatever you do is sustainable. And people still feel good. So what we're gonna do is, with this little framework, every time we try to do something in the company, we're gonna ask how we are supporting this organizational health. If whatever we're gonna do is gonna deteriorate organizational health, we're gonna, for example, make people work very hard or create a conflict between two teams. So we don't do it, we do it in a different way. And this is a framework I recommend for anyone to work with product owners and teams, to make sure that whatever we do, we are safe. And especially now with COVID, that people have a higher activation of the amygdala, then we need to be very cautious on how we treat people and what we do, and specifically teaching the concept of business agility and organizational health, right? So what we do is, as I said, we're gonna start creating this backlog, but then we have, we know everything we do, in which quadrant they go, and we ask how we're gonna improve the organizational health. Now, regarding organizational health, I just wanted to give you some examples of something that deteriorates organizational health, right? And something which improves. In general, what I see is that when, for example, people have a minimal change in people's private lives, it means that this company has higher health, right? If I do not need to adapt to the company, but the company adapt to me, there is a higher health. And then there are some examples that you can see. Something you generally see when I go to a company and I see a leader, the leader, instead of blaming people, just is curious and go and talk to the team trying to find out, it means that they generally have higher organizational health, right? So, said that, we create the product backlog and we ask for all these items, apart from knowing in which of these quadrants are, how this item improve organizational health, and we want it to be in perpetuity. And this is the key now in COVID times, and this is the key for any company who wanted to retain people and who want to make sure that everything they do is cheaper, is faster, and they can keep delivering business value to their customers, right? So said that, I wanted to know, guys, how many, because I don't know your profiles, I want to know, just give me a thumb, let's do thumb up if you are agile coach, change consultant, or something similar, business consultant. Middle, if you are product owner or someone related to teams, and all the rest facing down. Just give me a thumb. Okay, let's just go, yeah, okay, great. So, one of the things we generally see in companies is that we know very well how to do or how to practice certain agile mindset in IT teams, in software teams, but we do not know how to sometimes expand the agility to the rest of the organization. And this is something I talk in my book. One day, I was working with a client in New Zealand, a bank, many years ago, and they told me, Eric, next week, all these things that you came and are working in Scrum is working fine, Agile is working fine, everyone is very agile in IT and software, but we want to expand this to the rest of the organization. And I was pushing for this to happen, because when you create a product, guys, you do not just make IT teams agile, you require more people. And if the other people are not agile and have very strong mindset, then you're going to have more conflict. If you have 20 people to develop a product, whatever it is, software is not software, and then 2 people, they are from software and the other 18 are not, then you are not going to be very flexible and things are going to take longer. So whenever you think of making sure people are more agile, you need to think how we're going to extend these ideas to the rest of the organization. Some of the ideas work very well with IT, but they do not work very well outside. So I created what I call the cake. It's a cake, a chocolate cake, right? And I created this model after or during when I was working with this bank, as they wanted to move from agile to business or enterprise agility. And my model says that basically there are 5 different types of agility. And if you consider these 5 types of agility, when you create a change, then everything's gonna be better. So the first thing I consider is that a company cannot be agile if people are not mentally agile. So if I'm not flexible enough in the company where everyone is very structured, how the hell you want people to be agile? Does not make any sense, right? It's crazy. Company go there and say, okay, I want to be agile, but people are not mentally flexible. And this is one of the problems. Oh, well, we have been doing this for 20 years and we want to do it in this way. In a company I was helping, I canceled my email. So people have to force to walk to me and talk to me. So without mental agility, a company cannot adapt quickly. And if you cannot adapt quickly, there is no resilience. Resilience is that if you overcome a problem, you learn from that and you overcome. And in here, I developed a few techniques. I grabbed some idea from psychology and I adapted to work in companies, which is called reframing, for example. There are certain techniques that increase your mental agility. The neurons in your brain connect in a certain way, and they try to connect always in the same way because they save energy. But if you want to be flexible, you need to break those patterns. And reframing is a technique, or I introduced 2 techniques in the book that force your brain to think in different ways that you don't feel very comfortable, but you have to do it. And that increases your mental agility, or what we call neuroplasticity. This is the first thing that I recommend people working in companies where people are not very mentally flexible. The second is what we call social agility. It's how people connect. If we have a company that want to be agile, and then you have in the 3rd floor, the product owners, and then in the 1st floor, you have the developers. I don't know why always developers go to the bottom and people to the top, and people at the top have better offices. So is how people connect. And I give so many examples of companies doing things, company adapting the environment for people to almost collide between them to force them to talk. And I'm gonna talk about this in a few minutes. Then we have outcomes agility. Basically, if the company needs to change the strategy and move from A to B, it has to be very quickly, and people need to be able to adjust the budget, the flows, and make sure that people get used to it very quickly. And the last two is structural agility, is the processes. These processes have to be also flexible. If you create new processes, people have to be involved, the people affected have to be involved. And this is what we call structural agility. And finally, what we call, probably call agile, which is technical agility. But what I believe is that in order to, in order to create a plan that works, a change plan, you need to consider these 5 types of agility. For example, you can be very agile in your IT department, but if there are no procedures that support these people or processes, I'm talking about procedures in the company, the structural agility, then that's not going to work, right? If people do not connect, it's not going to work. And if people do not have ability to reframe the problem, mental agility is not going to connect. So what we do is we cut the cake vertically here, and that helps you check when you want to make a change. For example, okay, I want to change something in a software product. Okay, do I have the processes supporting these people to do that? Are people able to connect with other people that they need to? Are people enough to see that they have different point of view and it can be done in different ways? And then we mark all the ticks before doing that, right? So something I generally do with companies is I ask them to create a list of improvement in all these 5 different areas and create an organizational improvement backlog, right? So for example, we need to be more mentally flexible. What we are going to do to achieve that, right? You probably, if you were a Scrum Master or a coach, you've seen this kind of improvement backlogs. How we're going to achieve that? How we're making sure we are going in that direction? And then you create this backlog. And again, we ask how this item is going to improve organizational health. And this is very, very important for new organizations. So we have the product backlog, we have the organizational improvement backlog, and they are connected by the fact that all these things have to increase organizational health. So new companies need to pay close attention to organizational health, not that processes, but first organizational health. And basically, when we use these 2 tools, we start understanding where people are in the pyramid and how to create what I call powerful change, processes, or you can call it also initiatives. And these powerful initiatives are initiatives that accelerate. Then we go. Okay, so let me give you some tips. I think it was a lot of theory, but I hope you can start applying this idea from tomorrow. The first thing I want to recommend you, if you want to do something positive with your company, it is what I call improve strength the community, right? We have now people working from home and people working in the office. The problem is that most of companies are trying to use standard tools like Skype or maybe Zoom, like we are using now. Stop using it. Don't use it anymore. Why? Because these tools just allow employees to see the face of the other person. Apart from that, we did a lot of research and we know that it's very tiring for the brain because it needs to reconstruct the social environment. There are other options. What we need to understand is that when we are physically in a place, we're able to our brain is able to see so many things, like public information about the editor. We can see what is around, right? Like Kanban or data that is on the walls or whatever. We can see how people interact. For example, if I see someone from my team meeting a database engineer, I know that something is happening there. So next time I have a problem with the database, maybe I talk to that person from the team. This is because my brain is recognizing these social interactions. Then I can see the faces of people everywhere, and my brain tries to detect what's happening. And then I can see how people is moving, how people is talking. There are so much information coming from the environment. And when you use just Zoom, that is lost, guys. So tools like Sococo, there are other tools, they reveal the visual environment. So you have a light, you can reveal your office, and then you can see how people are moving. You can see where is the people, what they are talking about. You can close the door, you can open the doors. In a company, probably 40 years ago, we used this tool, and we put cameras in all the rooms, and we didn't care if the person was physically or virtually, it was the same. The person could click in that room and see all the panels and interact with people in the room. So we broke the barrier between virtual and physical, and this is what we want. We need to rebuild the social environment in modern companies. And obviously, there is a strong connection between social environment and value stream, right? Imagine if you have a value stream. The value stream is how you produce a product. If you need 20 people to produce this product, you shouldn't have 10 people in the first floor, 2 people at the bottom, and this kind of things. So when people are connected and strong connected, they produce more business value. The second thing is, during COVID now, we need to make sure that information flows, knowledge flows better, and then have a lot of communities of practice where people can learn new things. And I talk about many examples in my team, new ways of learning things, and also some examples in companies when people vote in communities of practices, which direction they want to go. For example, in the community of practice of engineering, they vote which technology they are going to use. The key is that this community of practice is open for everyone, so everyone can go there and vote against the new idea, right? And then what I call daily skills balancing. It is, as we are remote, we need to check with people if they have the skills all the time. It's difficult for people when they are remote to find the new skills. Finally, I also wanted to recommend what I called rapid response room. It can be virtual or it can be physical. And basically in here, the idea is a room. They have many names for this, where you have all the information there of what is happening in real time. What's happening here is that everyone can go into the room at any point. There are no hierarchies. I generally recommend not like this picture, remove tables and chairs. And then people go inside, and then imagine that something changed in the market. So this person go inside and detect that, and then they call the team, for example, developing some product, and then bring the team into the room and say, guys, look, this changed now. This is not valid anymore. Our assumptions are not valid anymore. So maybe we need to change this sprint, or maybe we'll change whatever we are doing. And they just decide and they come back. And then this room is very important, because what happens in this room affects all the backlogs in the company, all the estimations, etc. Right? So every time you go into the room and something happens, will probably impact some hypotheses that we have. It can impact the objectives. But this is not a room for meetings. This is not a room for managers. This is a room where people can go inside and outside. And then whatever happens, if it impacts certain people, you should go and call other people, and then the company can create new rules, And then the idea is that whatever happens, you will try different alternatives and you refine and improve. Every company is different, so you have to find your own ways. And finally, I wanted to show you something. It's very important now. Let me check the time. Yes. Okay. Also, just finished. I will share the screen again. Just 1 second, guys. So you need to make sure that you come up with very creative ideas at the time of suggesting ideas for a company. I wanted to show you what I did in one of the companies. You're gonna see why sometimes the first thing that a company proposes is not the best idea. In fact, many times there are other options. You have to be very, very creative. Just give me a second. I will share the screen and perfect. I'm here. Let me see. There you go. So this is a work I did a few years ago with a company in New Zealand. It was a supermarket. The CEO of the company came and said, I wanted to fire, I can't remember the number, it was something around 3% of the employees in, the plaintiff in the company, because we want to save money, because we want to invest this money on the SAP department. We need more people with SAP skills. What happened here is that I say, okay, do not fire anyone. For me, to be honest, it's very important that companies do not fire people. Behind every person, there is a family, there are kids, I feel very responsible, to be honest, with these situations. And I try to be very creative. You cannot achieve this a good outcome all the time, but you do your best. So I just asked the SAP department, they were investing almost $1 million, New Zealand dollars a month in salaries. And I just did something very simple that took like 2 minutes or 3 minutes to fill for each person there, which was a survey asking them how many times in the day they switched between non-related tasks. When I say non-related tasks, are tasks that are not related to that project or whatever they are doing, right? So I'm working on something, then someone comes and asks me for help in something non-related, and I do it. And I discovered that the average was around 4, so people change 4 times. Then when I discovered that, I also discovered they didn't have backlogs, proper backlogs, and they didn't have priorities. There are many pieces of research Microsoft did and other companies did that we can approximately calculate how much money or based in effort you lose as a result of switching between tasks. And then I extrapolated this with other techniques, and then I could realize that for each dollar they invested in this SAP department, 58 cents were lost as a result of the multitasking. And what I did after is I checked if the same pattern was also repeated in the company. I suspected that it happened also in the rest of the company, and it happened in the rest of the company. So I suggested different techniques of having proper backlogs and priorities, and removing the possibility for people to ask for a request on the fly to jump from one thing to another. And that allowed the company to save a lot of money and not to fire people. And for me, it was a huge responsibility. So now with COVID, I ask you guys, be more creative. There are more solutions. Think out of the box. Do crazy experiments and see how they work with not the whole company, or just one part of the company. And this is basically what I had to tell you today. I wanted to give you a couple of frameworks and talk about how the brain works. And I hope you got some ideas and you understand a little bit more that the person who left 6 months ago is not the same person. It does not have the same flexibility to change as it had before. And many of the plans that company had for change, maybe they have to reevaluate those plans. And this is what I have to tell you today. I want to know if you had any questions, then we can discuss it further.
News, we've got lots of questions.
Oh, wow.
So how are you hanging in there? Is it 2 o'clock in the morning now?
Yeah, I'm still okay. I'm also, as I mentioned, I'm moving home tomorrow in the morning.
It's today.
Yes. The power of today. The power of today, you always pay tomorrow. But I'm very happy. I'm super happy to do it.
Okay,
Take the time.
So first question is from Roddy, and he asks, what motivated you to write your book?
What I found is most of the books or told me a story of someone or taught me a framework. But I couldn't find any book which basically told me what happened during change. What happened in the brain during change? Why a technique works in this company doesn't work? And if this one doesn't work, what I can use? And also, I didn't find any book that told me you have a framework here that you can create a powerful plan to expand agility outside IT. I didn't find it. I got very frustrated. And I said, let's write it. And that was motivated me to change, help other people to succeed in a good way. I'm not talking about company guy. I'm talking about you coming back home and feeling happy because you did something in the company that was successful, and then you learn something new.
Yeah, this does sound like an intelligent, context-driven change process rather than a pattern. So I like that. Next question was mine, so I'll ask you it. With COVID, most boards have been by C-suite boards, went into panic and have gone 10 years in the future overnight. And as they panicked, they just did things, cutting costs, and that was the easy thing to do. Then they let all the change people go. So lots and lots of change people I know have been the first casualties in March. This drove organizations into deep fear. How can we stop boards from panicking and terrorizing their organizations and inflicting deep trauma?
So there is a reality, which means that the companies need more innovation now. If they just start firing people to save costs, they are destroying knowledge. And then when you destroy knowledge, there are ways that before firing that people, you can calculate how worth is that knowledge. For example, if you fire a team, it means that after firing this team, maybe doing something is going to take me a month, and now it takes me 1 day. Then you can basically make some calculations, and then you can present it to the company. It doesn't mean they're going to pay attention to you, but there is something which is clear, and companies require more innovation than ever now. And if they start firing people, they kill innovation, they kill shared knowledge, and they kill organizational health. So people in the company are going to be afraid that they are the next ones. You know what happened when the amygdala activates, people start following the procedure. And when people start following the procedures, they stop innovating.
Exactly, yeah.
Did I answer your question?
You did, completely.
That's why I created this framework, right? With the 4 quadrants and the organizational health.
Yeah, and you can cost that. I mean, you can certainly cost the rate of innovation. At a time when they need to be more innovative, they're killing innovation.
And cost of delay, you can use cost of delay. We have had cost of delay for years. You can calculate how long it's going to take you now.
Yeah. Okay.
And also, something important is, if there is a new disruption in the market, tomorrow there is a product better than you, how long, if you fire all these people, it's going to take you to create something superior?
That's a huge point. Yeah. Excellent point. Yeah. Okay. Next question is from Liz. Is it framing or reframing?
It's
Do you
called
want to say it?
reframing. Because framing is to place something for me, right? This is not a definition. And then, to be honest, I started learning English when I was 28. So I hope it's the same in English and Spanish. For me, framing is placing some ideas in some context we already know and trying to make sure we make some adjustments. Reframing is trying to see something with different glasses, the lenses from a perspective that we don't feel very comfortable. But the key here, reframing is completely different than changing the point of view. For example, some clients, we see that with the design thinking. So we go outside and we talk to client and we try to see from the client's point of view, the perspective. The problem is we see from the client point of view, but with our values and principles. We don't change the values and principles. So there is one exercise I propose, which is, okay, so do not try to see things, try to also embrace that point of view. And one example I give is, think of a politician you love, that is very good politician. Well, maybe you don't have any, but if there is no, take a friend of you, someone else. And then think of someone you hate. You can even see has very good values opposite to you.
Very easy to do that one.
Yeah, okay, that's easy, right? Okay, now you think of the values and principles you don't like about that person. Think of 3 or 4 values. You know, maybe this person is racist, maybe this person, I don't know, whatever. Now I'm gonna ask you for 10 minutes to embrace those values and principles and think how you feel. Now you have those values. So what happens is your brain it feels very strange because your brain starts activating the amygdala, telling, no, Eric, this is not the way to go. This against. So what happens is when you are doing this reframing process, you are forcing your brain to think in a different way. As your values are not compatible with yours, there is activation of the amygdala. You don't feel comfortable. In fact, you can feel a little bit uncomfortable, totally uncomfortable about that. Some people feel the stomach and they feel nervous. But this is what we want. This is what you need to do as a coach, as a change professional. You need to embrace values. You don't feel comfortable for 10 minutes, then you can come back. But that increases neuroplasticity in your brain. And this is what I call reframing.
That's very interesting. I didn't know that. Next.
And this is part of mental agility.
Yes.
Increasing mental agility.
We could do a whole talk on that one alone, actually, I think. Okay, how do you deal with the reality that a high proportion of managers fall into the psychopath, narcissist mindset and worldview, with whom real dialogue is unlikely, ? Likely just to get the do as I say response.
Okay, so I wanted to just clarify that I do what I say is not a psychopath. Psychopath is at the bottom. Let me just go back to the triangle here and share the screen. And there is an important difference between I do what I say and a psychopath. And I think that the difference is that in a psychopath, the brain works in a different way and people do not have empathy. Now, some people behave as they are psychopath, but in reality, they are not psychopaths because they do have empathy. The problem is that if I need to go in that direction, you need to make sure that I'm going to be safe, that I'm not going to lose prestige, that I'm not going to, the company is not going to fire me. This is not a psychopath, guys. This has a similar answer, but if you push the right buttons, then the person is going to go hand by hand with you. So the narcissist and psychopath do not have empathy. And I was very unlikely to have a relationship with a narcissist and psychopath for some time, And I can tell you that you can realize, because narcissists and psychopaths even simulate feelings. The other guys have feelings. The only thing is that they try to protect themselves. And that's why I make a distinction. And then when they are not psychopaths, then you can move them up in the pyramid. Now, what you do when you have narcissists and psychopaths? Well, it depends on the grade of narcissism and psychopathic people, how high it is. I always recommend big companies to have a health professional, and you are not an expert, work with them, get advice, and then that's the person to make sure this is a narcissist or psychopath. If that's a narcissist or psychopath and the health professional said so, it's different than if you say that, because he knows that and he has experience. And then if that's the case, how are we going to improve organizational health? If the narcissist or psychopath, is not in that person, not too high, then you can, if that person follows certain basic rules, it should be almost okay. So any certain working agreements, for example, every time you talk to someone, you respect the other person and whatever. If that is impossible, or the organizational health is bad, then maybe you are not going to be able to help that company.
Good. How are we doing for time, Sath? Have we got time for the audio book?
Yeah, I think you've got time for one or two more, I think, and then I'll
Okay.
wrap it up. Then we'll do the wee audiobook raffle.
Yeah. Okay. Liz, again, how do we get people on board to do this? What was the context of that one, Liz? Was that a particular slide or?
So, yeah, I need some
context. Erich, when you were saying about they wanted to fire everybody in the company in New Zealand, and then you did the sort of cost-benefit analysis of all the things that they weren't probably doing right that you save the money. So how do you get people on board with that as you're trying to find this out?
Okay, so I did something very aggressive. I just went into a director's room meeting. They were meeting, and I said, "Do you know that every dollar you invest, you are losing 57 cents?" And I said that, and they said it's impossible. Then I showed the PPTs, some PPT, because they use PPTs. I don't use PPTs. Obviously, I pre-arranged with someone to go to that meeting, and then someone from the room, which was a very high position, already knew that would be happening. I did a previous work before showing these values, so there were some rumors also in the company that was happening.
Yeah.
And then I started preparing the situation. So I didn't just came up. And then I found a lot of resistance in terms of this is impossible. Let's do the numbers.
Yeah.
Oh, that's a good idea. And if this is impossible, I do the numbers. It is in the triangle here between I don't like the proposed change, or I don't like this, and I don't understand it. But it's moving up.
Yeah.
You know, it's not I want things as I say. It's okay. Let me see, because maybe you are right, maybe you are not. But you need to do, so in company you have influencers.
Yeah.
And then you need to work with them to start influencing things to happen. Did I answer your question?
Yeah, we do something similar, Ben, so that's brilliant. Fantastic, thank you.
Thank you for the question.
Good. Last one's from Liz. Liz, you were asking a lot of questions. Do you want to ask it yourself, or do you want to?
I'm curious, that's fine.
Would you involve staff in working these problems out, or coming up with where they know the company could save the money?
So if you don't see how you said you used your influencer, so that probably takes away this question. But if you hadn't come up with that, how would you try and get a bit of a baseline to try and start change happening?
Can you reframe the question?
Okay, so
give me an example. Yes.
So, but when you sort of talked about all of that, it really made me start thinking about, okay, so you've managed to work out like the cost that they're really losing per dollar.
Yes.
would you involve other teams to do the same then? Or would you be the change agent to make all this happen?
Okay, so it depends on the company, really.
Okay.
Sometimes in some companies, there is a saying in Spanish, is that they send you to war with a fork, right? Sometimes it feels like when you go to a company, it feels like they send you to work with a fork. The problem with coaches is that sometimes we take ownership of the change.
Yes.
And this is bad because whatever is wrong, you are going to be responsible, right? So in those cases, I try to work with the influencers to make the calculations. In other companies, I did something similar. I had to do it by myself, but it does not work very well because obviously I came up with the idea, but then who are you? You are a guy who nobody knows, coming there with crazy post-its. You put post-it everywhere. You start talking to people. You walk in and asking questions and asking crazy questions. And then I think that if you want to influence a system, you need to understand how the system works first, and especially the social system, which is what persons influence what, and then this is very important. But I'm not sure whether I answered your question or I just talk about other things.
Oh, you have.
Just to build on that, how do you work now remote? Because it must be incredibly difficult to do that remote.
Yes. So what I'm doing now is I'm working with coaches. I just help coaches from other places. They basically tell me the problems they are having, and I try to help them bring in some new ideas. So we have a conversation twice a week. They give me some context, and then we evaluate and we see. This is what I do.
So you're third line support now.
Let's say that, yes. Yes, and now I started also with the organizational pill, that the triangle we have seen, that basically this triangle, every of these layers, I talk in the book about the techniques for every of these layers. In next chapter of the organizational pill, I'm talking about this triangle for people to understand how it moves up in the triangle.
Brilliant. Right, I'm going to hand to Sath. Thank you very much.
I hope you use the triangle, and I hope you use some of the techniques here. Any technique I develop in a company, I try to make it public after, originally in my blog, but I realized that people have a few minutes. So I came up last week with this organizational pill, which are 5 minutes, and then people can watch the video. So during lunch time, that I think is a good idea now.
Yeah, we'll share those for you, Eric, because you kind of shared them with us earlier, so that's great.
Thank you very much.
Thanks for facilitating the Q&A this evening, Scott, and Eric, absolutely delighted to host you tonight, and thoroughly enjoyed your session. I think a lot of great stuff for our audience, really good insights, and we'll share the recording for those who couldn't unfortunately join us this evening. Just one last thing to quickly finish off with before I do the usual wrap up. So you've kindly offered our attendees 2 free copies of your audio book. So what I've done, just to make it fair, is I've left it to those who are still with us, because I thought that would be kind of nice. So I've kind of been working away in the background and filtering as people have dropped off. So yeah, if you dropped off, you've missed out, unfortunately, but such is life. So do you want to give me a number between 1 and 13, please?
1 and 30?
13.
1 and 13.
Yeah.
Okay. 6.
6. So our first winner of your audiobook is Ivan. So there you go, Ivan. That's you're our first winner, so we'll get that to you. I'll arrange that with Eric. Do you want to give me another number between 1 and 13 and not 6?
Yes, it's going to be 11.
11. So the winner of the second one is Mark. So Mark, you're our lucky winner of the second free audiobook courtesy of Eric this evening. So well done to you.
Yeah, something very important is, guys, as I said before, I know some people got annoyed in the UK, but I had to choose the biggest market. It's an American guy reading the book. Okay.
I'm listening to it just now. It's not that bad, guys. It's not that bad.
And also it includes all the pictures from the book in a PDF that you can check all the diagrams, which is very cool.
Well, listen, that's fab. Thanks. That's very generous of you, and I'll arrange with you to get them to the lucky winners this evening. Just to finish off, thank you all for joining. Absolutely fab, great participation, loved the questions. We're back in 2 weeks' time, so we've got Pierre, he's joining us for his session, talking about AO concepts, so that's themes and ideas from his new book that he's just released. So really looking forward to that. Pierre's always really entertaining and he's always got quite a lot to say, so I think that will be a fab session. And yeah, thanks again for joining. Been a great session. Thanks for your participation. Hopefully see some of you at Lean Agile Exchange tomorrow if you're going to that. And yeah, look for other stuff coming, and we'll continue to have things in the pipeline in October. We're starting to plan for 2021. That's a scary statement, right? So if you do have any ideas or thoughts or things you'd love to hear about, don't hesitate to get in touch with us. We'd love to hear your thoughts, and bring the right kind of sessions to the community, the things that you guys are interested to learn about and hear about. We're always happy to do that. So you know us all by now, so reach out, get in touch with us directly. You can reach us through the usual channels, get me on LinkedIn and all the other areas, or use our email address. But yeah, I'd love to hear more of your thoughts on what you'd like to hear about. But thanks again for this evening. Thanks again to our wonderful speaker. It's what time is it now, Eric? 2 a.m. Half 2?
Yeah, but it is fine. It is fine.
Well done. Well done to you, sir.
Thank you, guys.
Brilliant. Thanks again. Thank you all.
Thank you. Have a good night.
He's away clubbing now.
Take care. See you soon.
See you soon, guys. Bye.
Bye-bye.
Thank you. Bye.